YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. And today I got my top 5 favorite signings of NFL free agency. Going to count them down from 5 to 1. There's really not a whole bunch that I love. There's ones that I like the player, maybe the impact he'll make. Then it's only a 1-year deal, or maybe it's a bad contract, the layout of it. And there's 5 that I really like, I think will be a major impact. Good contracts, good fits for several years here for these teams. So, I wanted to break down these 5s. We got videos very similar to this covering free agency on the channel. We have free agency grades, mock drafts, and more NFL draft content right around the corner here coming up. So really excited about that. Check out our Twitter, breaking news, constantly talking NFL draft on there. And then please subscribe to the channel to join us for all that content. Link in the comment section, pinned in the comment section for anything that you need. Here's our Twitter. Always talking news. We got a fan voted mock draft going on right now. We're on the third pick, 49ers. It's a battle. It's a battle right now. So we're gonna keep going on. This will actually eventually turn into a video. So we'll see what happens there. But number 5, favorite signing. This team a little underwhelming for me for free agency, but I like the signing. It's going to be the Bengals with Mike Hilton. Actually makes my top 5 favorite signings. Best signing in my opinion, 5th best. A little underwhelming with the Bengals offseason, or I should say free agency as a whole. I was kind of getting hyped on them. The idea of Joe Burrow, if you build an offensive line around him, you kind of replace A.J. Green, you get some more on defense. They've lost some guys, Carl Lawson kind of being the big one, William Jackson. So not really thrilled about that. They didn't really build the offensive line. They do so off the draft. They have the draft coming up, but so not really thrilled with them, but I love this signing. I like Mike Hilton. He's one of the best slot corners in football. I think it's excellent, too, that they got such a good blitzing slot corner. I think that'd be big time for them. They don't really get too much production pass rush-wise like the old-fashioned way, so I think bringing in a corner that could blitz. And you have Jesse Bates, who's one of the better coverage safeties in football. In my opinion, maybe at any given time could be the best free safety in football. So he does a great job covering in the back end. You got Von Bell from last year. You got Trey Waynes. You got a couple corners that can cover. So I think he fits, where you don't need a guy like Hilton in coverage at all times. I think a guy that can blitz fits pretty well. But you have him for 4 years. It's crazy that he signed a 4-year contract worth, $6 million per year. I think that's surprising, because the guys that you feel like ended up going way cheaper than you thought they would sign 1-year deal, maybe 2 max, but for the most part, 1-year deal. You lock them up for 4 years. So you lock up improving one of the best slot corners that'll bring an extra element to your defense, I suppose, in the blitzing game. You got him for 4 years for, I think, a really good deal. It seems like slot corners are getting more and more important. So I think this is going to it looks like tremendous value now. I think it's going to look like ridiculous value in every step of the way. I was going to say in 2 years, but every single year it's going to look more and more ridiculous. As long as he plays well. I know it's not the Steelers defense, but the Bengals probably heading in the right direction. Really wish they didn't lose Lawson mainly, but I like the signing. Everything about it was fantastic. Number 4 is going to be Curtis Samuel to Washington football team. I like this one right off the bat, but it's still it's kind of sticking with me. It's growing on me. It's mainly because of the fit. I love the fit here in the Scott Turner offense. He's always good with, somewhat of the gadget type players, but Curtis Samuel is that, but way more than that at the same time. So you're going to use him that way because he did play running back, switched to receiver, was, early on was still, kind of struggling to get a hold of the receiver position, but so he kind of felt like just a gadget player, which works at a fantastic level in this style offense. But now he's really elevated himself as a receiver, which Washington needed big time. So I wasn't really a fan of throwing an insane amount of money at a receiver instead of drafting one that, could be as good or down the line better and end up being cheaper, obviously. But I don't think this is an overpay. It's not like a ton of money they're getting thrown at him. And I think they can focus on, other important things, left tackle. If somehow they're able to get a quarterback, I know they're picking, 19, so it might be tough, but they can focus on tackle and a pretty good tackle class, be able to focus on that in the first round in that spot, might be ideal. So it kind of plays a part of everything, but I like the 3-year, $34.5 million. Like I said, the gadget part to his game is going to work in this offense, but the receiver part as well. Pairing with Terry McLaurin, he's getting better as a receiver. You can just get him the ball anyway. But last year, he really elevated his game, getting open, downfield, understanding coverages, and even going up and attacking the ball, which was surprising. So a lot of upside. This is mainly top 5 because of fit. If there was a negative side to it, it wouldn't make my top 5. There's a lot of signings I like. I like the player or I like the contract, but it's all got to go together. So everything's great here, but the fit is really what stands out for Washington and Curtis Samuel. We're on to the top 3. Number 3 is going to be John Johnson going to the Browns, the Rams safety here. Best safety of the free agency class. I thought maybe he'd be a little bit of an overpay, and even it's not a guy that I really hate if you overpay, but he ended up being, and I thought that would be around $15 million. Maybe getting Justin Simmons money would be where it's a little much, but I still like John Johnson. That was kind of my thinking ahead of before free agency, but he ends up getting a lot cheaper than that. Apparently he turned down money elsewhere. So that's, you gotta feel good about that. Maybe if you're the Browns, a Browns fan. But this is gonna help. This is gonna help their defense so much. Such a good free safety. Getting that coverage in the back end feels like they're planning for today's era, which is fantastic. But specifically the Chiefs, being able to cover on that back end, it's gonna elevate the young corners. The young group. Denzel Ward. You see if Greedy Williams plays, maybe Grant Delpit gets some action, and in the slot or wherever he is, playing safety as well. But John Johnson, Ronnie Harrison looks like a pretty good safety group. And they also had Troy Hill, who was familiar with playing John Johnson. John Johnson could play in the slot, play outside. So I think it's a really good fit, I think he complements the other defensive backs well, and vice versa there. But this was just huge for the Browns. They're pretty much set on offense. You just got to find ways to get better and be able to get better at a position, get better in coverage, which you need to do. Have an athletic guy in the back end, which you did here. You needed to do. And then specifically, be able to game plan a little better against a team like the Chiefs and the Bills here. It's kind of like the perfect guy free agency to be able to do that. So everything makes sense there. He will have a pretty big cap hit, as it goes down, further along. But I saved some money this year to be able to get some other guys in there. But yeah, it was a big impact signing. Was cheaper than I expected to be as well. So big time for the Browns. We're on to the big top 2 here. Number 2 is me, Bud Dupree. You guys know I'm a big Bud Dupree guy. I feel like the football world's kind of split on Bud Dupree. I had him as my number 2 free agent behind Dak Prescott, so you knew I was going to like whoever got him unless they paid something stupid. But I would have gave, around, pass rushers, one of the most important positions in football, around 18, 19 million. So the Titans get him a little cheaper than that. Like the long-term deal so they can, he's theirs. They can work with them for a long time. I like Dupree because he's a disruptor and he creates for his teammates. I love those style of pass rushers. I think he makes the players around him better. I think a lot of the game plan is on Bud Dupree because he's not just rushing off the edge. He's doing different things. And I think people's knock on Bud Dupree is it's kind of funny, I think, because it seems to be he had free shots on the quarterback. And that's just said by somebody. People automatically think, he just had free shots. He's going to continue to get those free shots. Was it created by his teammates? But if you actually watch, why don't people stop to think, did that player create the open shots at the quarterback? And that's what Bud Dupree did if you watched him. And the difference between the Steelers' defense with and without him, I thought kind of showed what he was, how he was playing. If you remember, like the first quarter of last season, I was talking about Bud Dupree as Defensive Player of the Year, the first quarter part. And was still in the range, halfway through the season, and then all of a sudden the injury came. But you saw the difference with and without him for the Steelers defense. But I think he helps you getting after the quarterback. I think he helps players around him. Like I said, that's the main part. He's good stopping the run. And he's good, down, not just the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. He's good downfield if he can cover, making plays back there, pretty rangy. It's a guy that I think could play off the ball linebacker if you needed him to. I think he's that versatile, and he could fit any scheme. So I'm just a fan of his game. It really feels like he's getting better as well. It's exactly what the Titans needed. It's exactly what they needed. The only thing is, they only rush 3 a lot, so I'm hoping they don't do that with him. They need to rush more. Rush Landry, rush Dupree. But I think they will. I'm confident they got guys like this, so they can rush more because they didn't really feel comfortable with it before. But yeah, good fit. And as a big-time player, they got him locked up for 5 years. And even, yeah, $82.5 million, it's a lot of money. If you look at the layout of the contract, it's pretty balanced. I don't see, there's no flaws to it at all. And I think, per year, I think it's a good deal. Pass rushers like that, 18, 19 million usually, so he's under that range. Number one, my favorite free agency signing, maybe it's not the one that's going to make the biggest impact, but it's going to make a pretty big impact in my opinion. I love what the Raiders did bringing in Yannick NGAKOUE, another player that seems like the football world is kind of split on. He had 8 sacks last year, jumping from just going to the Vikings right before the season started, and he actually led the Vikings in sacks when he only played, 5 weeks for them, and then goes to the Ravens, ends up with 8 sacks. It's a pretty productive season. There's pass rushers that teams and fans are dying that guy to get 8 sacks, with way more reps. So he's productive. We know he gets after the quarterback. That's exactly what the Raiders needed. I just really wanted him to go to a team and them just to ride it out with him, stick it out, because he's very young still, and he can get after the quarterback. He's proven that. He's proven that when you give him the shot. So I think it's perfect for the Raiders, opposite of Max Crosby, Cleveland Farrell in the rotation. They just, bottom line, they needed guys that get after the quarterback because they just weren't doing it before. I think they did that. So for all those, it's, why it could be number one. But in the 2-year, $26 million, $13 million per year. Young pass rushers that proven to get to the quarterback usually get a lot more than $13 million. He's not as, the reason a guy like Bud Dupree, Bud Dupree's a better player because Bud Dupree has got so much more to his game. I think that's people's knock on NGAKOUE. He goes after the quarterback. It's what he does. But that's mainly what you're paying him to do. That's what the Raiders need. He's not a guy that's going to dominate dropping in coverage, but it's not what you need from him. They need a guy that can get sacks, get after the quarterback, not just get pressure either. At some point, in the recent past, pressures kind of got a little overrated. They were underrated because nobody really knew about them. Now they're a little overrated because, at the end of the day, you do have to get to the quarterback and you got to bring them down. That's how you can change the game there. And he does that. I keep mentioning it, but he does it. $13 million per year. If they could have managed to get 3 years longer term, I'd feel even better about it. But I guess there's some risk because what's the situation? Why did he drive himself out of Jacksonville? Why did he get traded from? I think the Vikings traded him because I don't think he really fits. I think they wanted more hand in the dirt guy, which now in Gus Bradley's defense, one side could stand up, and I think he can even rush from the dirt, but. The Vikings weren't really planning on re-signing him, all those things. They didn't view him as a perfect fit, if they want to re-sign him. And the Ravens just do that. They bring in guys and they let them go, and they bring in guys, they let them go, and they need more of a guy that can drop in coverage. So I guess that makes sense. But if the Ravens would have stuck it out with them, I think he'd have been extra productive for them, which they get production on defense, but not a whole bunch off from specifically the edge guys. But, yeah, I think this is great for the Raiders. Big impact. Love the value here. It's exactly what they needed. So that is why it's my number one, there's a lot of other guys that, big time pickups, some of them I don't love the contract for. I think we talked about them quite a bit. So you probably know which ones I'm talking about, but yeah, we got tons of videos like this, some rankings for free agency, grades for free agency, and separate videos on the channel. Some NFL draft content, mock drafts, and a lot more of that to come. So hopefully you can join us, subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Comment with your top 5 favorite. It's not necessarily the biggest impact, but with your favorite ones that stand out to you, go ahead and leave that in the comments. Check out our Twitter. We're always talking with you guys on there. But that is going to do it for this one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Goodbye.